After 2 years of delays, we're mere weeks away from the launch of The Division, ahead of its beta, I guess, which is next week. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a beta. Supposedly starts on the 28th.
Okay, so I guess ahead of that, between more people getting their hands on it, I kind of really want to know, like, get right down to it and sort of talk about exactly what this game is, because it feels like we filled in the blanks of what we saw as far back as E3 2013 as to what this game was. Like, I remember watching that initial trailer and thinking, oh, this is very sort of like slow and intentional co-op experience, like something like a co-op Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter or something like that. I'm a massive fan of all Rainbow Six games, Ghost Recon, stuff like that. Kind of felt like that, like everyone's talking and on point, and the numbers were popping up, but it felt like sort of like a tactical shooter that was co-op. From what we've heard over the past week, it looks like it's more like a sort of an online party shooter where you're fighting waves upon waves of people. Aaron, you played it last week. Scott Butterworth has a great preview up on the site, which folks can go check out if they want to as well. But I want to talk to you about what this game is. What does it, as somebody who plays shooters primarily, as somebody who loves games like Battlefield and loves games like Rainbow Six Siege, what is The Division to you when you were literally like shooting people and playing it?
So The Division, it's a co-op shooter. It's more so a co-op shooter than Destiny is. I think a lot of people compare this game to Destiny. In Destiny, there's people wandering around the world when you're playing it. I don't know. I would call it a mini-mo. It's like just a mini MMO.
Like other human players.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like mini-mo. Can we use that?
But like...
Mini-mo problems, mini-mo money. No? Okay, sorry.
So The Division is not like that. It really is a co-op shooter. You will only see other players in the first area that you spawn, and then maybe in a couple other select spaces. So you do have to pull your friends in with you before you go out into the city.
Okay.
They're marketing it as an RPG right now.
Yeah, very heavily it seems like, actually. It's almost like they've realized people don't think it's not an RPG, and they're sort of, well, I guess we'll get into what RPG means for a game like The Division, but sorry, go on.
Yeah, so it took Destiny, I think it took took Bungie a good year to realize that they thought they had a shooter, what they really had was a shooter RPG. So for The Division, they're coming at it from the other side. They're saying we have an RPG, and the shooting is kind of a byproduct of that. And I'm not sure which came first, whether like the sort of mediocre, I don't know if it's mediocre, it's just okay shooting. It's
right.
The shooting doesn't feel fantastic. It gets the job done. And it complements the world, which I think is very well fleshed out. You have a very good sense of time and place in The Division. It feels like the pandemic happened, all the weak people died off, and like you're right at that
the liberals.
moment. Yeah. People who can run fast enough all died. It feels like you're at that moment, right, where people are like running out of their supplies.
Right.
And they're getting desperate, and these three factions, the Rikers, looters, and cleaners, are all kind of at their height of power. That's when you come into it. Now, what you're actually doing in the world, I think it's going to depend on whether you like RPG or shooters more.
Right.
The shooting itself and the cover system is I found it to be very imprecise. I love another Ubisoft game, Ghost Recon Phantoms, which is another cover-based shooter. In that, you run, you can knee slide, you can prone slide, you can get in cover, and you can have 3 different standing, kneeling, or prone. You have none of that control in this game.
Okay.
All you really have are a Gears of War dive roll, a Gears of War roadie run to cover, and then the game itself handles how your character behaves in cover.
Right.
And
It's quite interesting you say that, because when I think about what made Destiny such a great game to play, regardless of its the litany of problems it had at launch, and then a lot of which were fixed last year, eventually, was that it's a Bungie shooter. Like they just do shooting real good. So to hear you say that like shooting and movement doesn't feel particularly great is a little bit really.
But on the other hand, this has much deeper RPG mechanics, which is kind of what they're advertising. So you have 3 sets. You have like 3 skill trees that are going at all times. You have your abilities, which you have 3 of them, and you have no limitations. You can pick from any skill tree. Then you have basically the equivalent of active skills, and you have passive skills. So you're going to find a lot of people doing stats tweaking. You can craft items. You can build very specific characters, but you're not locked into them. Like if something doesn't work, you just back out and go another direction.
Are you leveling up that one character and sort of unlocking better loot as you go along, or does it feel more like you're doing higher level missions and then through those missions you're finding better loot?
You find better loot through higher level missions. There's a little bit of a disparity with, like, a level one. I kind of had the same thing I found with Destiny. Like a level one gun against a level one character didn't really feel that different from a level 20 gun with a level 20 character.
Right, yeah.
Because we played both a starting character and a level 20 character. The game didn't feel like it had changed that much, but I didn't get to experience the journey and the storyline that happens in between 1 and 20. So again, mechanically, I thought the game was competent. It's not the thing that's going to carry it like Destiny.
It sounds like it as opposed to Destiny, which I remember Kevin's review back in, I guess it was late 2014 at this stage, was one of the biggest things he said, Peter, was that it was a game that was sort of bereft of place. Like, and we've subsequently found out that the story had actually been ripped out of the game. Do you think that's important to a co-op like shooter like this? Did it matter in Destiny that it didn't really feel fleshed out? And do you think it could be to the benefit of a game like The Division? Because maybe that's what people like about games like Borderlands. I don't know.
I think it really matters. And you look at something like Destiny that's set in sort of like these alien worlds. It's easy to and I say easy, in very limited terms, but it's easy to sort of concoct these fantastical things that don't exist, right? And just out of your imagination and say this is what the world is.
Yeah.
But for The Division, it's using Manhattan, right? Like people know Manhattan.
Contemporary
they live
time,
there. Yeah. So I think it's important in the sense that it's grounding the game in something that we can relate to. And as you made it sound, they actually do a good job of that, which I think that's important for any game to do is to draw you into the world. Or else it is just about mechanics.
Yeah.
But a game needs a little bit of soul.
I think that's what people sort of gravitated towards when they saw the E3 2013 stuff was that, this feels different because it's like, it's contemporary and it feels like it's grounded and it feels like I can reach out and sort of touch it like a lot of these games can.
And for me, like growing up with harsh winters, like in and around New York, for me, it was like cool. Like I could see this happening sort of, right? Like if the shit hit the fan, like I was like, I want to experience that because I've walked those streets and to see them empty, but then like there's a dude hiding behind a car door, like waiting to take you out. Like it looks good to me, and so I think it's important in that regard. The gameplay, like I have so many questions, and it's not so much about what it does or doesn't have, but it's just how it feels. That's the one thing I'm really wondering.
There's a couple of questions that are coming in from the Twitch chat, and a couple I've already banked to sort of touch on that. And if I don't get round to it, feel free to throw your own at them as well. But a lot of people are asking a lot of questions about. It feels like you've sort of tempered your expectation, and that's the conversation we're having. Whereas the internet is very much like, is this what I think it was? So some of those questions are Domus Rocks echoing a lot of what people are saying in the Twitch chat right now. Impressions on whether or not enemies are a bit bullet spongy. That's one of the things that came across in the gameplay was, man, you were shooting that guy in the head a lot. He doesn't really seem like he's reacting in a realistic way. I saw a clip where there was 5 or 6 just hooded people wandering towards, not taking cover and soaking up bullets like it's going out of fashion. Is that the experience of playing The Division?
I would have 2 things to say about that. I think, one, it's a double-edged sword because it's a contemporary setting. You're not shooting aliens or locusts or something huge that feels like it could take a lot of bullets.
Right.
So it is a little weird when you're pumping a dude with a hoodie full of rounds and he's not reacting at all.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the disparity between what I'd like the shooting to be and what it is came down to just the enemies not reacting very present.
Right.
Like they don't seem aware that they're getting shot a lot of times and they don't react like they're getting shot. And I think those are potentially fixable things. On the other hand, I will say that the preview build that we all played, including YouTubers and everybody who was there, was 3 people playing, and the game, we were told, scales to difficulty. So I do wonder, I think a lot more people are going to be playing this as a single-player experience than people think, because you won't run into other people randomly in the world outside of the spawn zone.
That's an interesting question. Owen O'Connell asked, what will this game offer to someone who's playing solo? Could you play? Because that's the main reason I dropped off Destiny was I got to whatever, I think of like super low, like level 15 or 16 or something. And I just thought, oh God, I really feel like my experience is being handicapped because I'm not playing with other people. So is this a game, do you think you could play solo?
The question is, how well does a game scale to a solo player? We didn't see that. It was very hard with 3 people. And I will say that the challenge was there for 3 people, and you will probably have to work with your friends. If they do the same thing to an individual, I don't see how you would survive on normal difficulty. But again, we didn't get to see the game scale down to a single person. But yeah, like that was one of the reasons why I'd taper off Destiny over time too. And, I would come back to it as my friends came back to it and then taper off as they tapered off.
Yeah.
Whereas this game, end game content aside, that's a whole other discussion. It probably will be a little bit more friendly to an individual person. Actually, probably a lot more friendly to an individual person than Destiny was.
I guess, yeah, it'll dodge some of those problems. Critical Reviews asks, is it pretty easy to group up with friends? And then Bob Jones 1980 asking a question a lot of people in the chat are, max party size. So was it easy to get involved with other people? And what was it? Is it 4 as the max?
Yeah, 4 players co-op. I think in the zone you spawn it was pretty easy. I can't remember. It was just a couple button presses after waving at somebody. Or somebody on your friends list. It's a little bit disappointing that you're not going to just run into people out in the world, because I always liked that about kind of just organically meeting up with people to share a moment and then dissipating. And you won't get that outside of the dark zone, but there is the dark zone. I will say that the dark zone is probably more true to their original vision than any other aspect of this game. It feels like kind of the DayZ meets, I don't know.
It sounds like an instance, like just a multiplayer instance or something where you're kind of, well, actually, I guess the opposite of what an instance is, in that it's like you're booting into like an area where you can run into random people. I mean, it looks like what they showed at E3 2013, at least, not to keep holding the game accountable to its original vision, but like that's what I wanted to play, right? That's what I think people in the chat wanted to play.
And I think that's where people are all going to end up too. As a matter of fact, I think you're going to want to get there as early as possible, because I don't know how they're going to stats balance. Or whether they're going to stat balance at all for weapons. Like, I don't know if a bunch of level 20s are just going to dominate, or level 30s are going to dominate that area. So I have a feeling a lot of people are going to check out the open world, and then depending on how gated it is, because there are gates with virus masks.
Right.
And there are gates
level 20 mask above only.
Yeah.
How big was the dark zone?
I think it was almost a third of the map.
Okay, actually, and then that goes into a question a lot of people, Coffee Jesus in the Twitch chat asking, do you think Ubisoft snapping Brooklyn off the Division smacks of Destiny, trying to make more money from the game later? And I guess echoing what Mr. Mazik said, can you compare the Division's map size to another game so we have some sort of perspective? How big is this game? And do you think it can still be playable at the size it is now, or still worthwhile?
The unanswered question, so the short answer is, if I just had to just freaking snowball it, I would say it's about the size of Destiny without loading screens. So if you just took all the planets in the original Destiny and smooshed them together,
that's what it kind of feels
remove loading screens. Yeah, it's comparable to that size. We spent 3 hours in just one, like, I don't know, 10 square block area doing missions and stuff. So it's sizable. You know, the density of content is really what matters. Yeah. And also because it's in a city with skyscrapers, we have no idea what kind of verticality the game will have.
Right.
I mean, it's 3 dimensions. So, like, we know there's an underground. I don't know if there's any skyscrapers that you can go into. So, yeah, it's a 3-dimensional map, and we just don't know how much of that space they're using.
But it didn't feel like this was a game that would be critically hampered from having Brooklyn off the map, or having, let's just say, an extra 50% or 100% more map. Did it feel like it was sort of substantial? I know it's a super difficult question, because I'm asking you off a 3-hour demo to fucking tell me how big the game is. But
I'm not very concerned about map size. I guess if you're coming as like a Skyrim player, like, no, you're not getting you're not getting anything like that. Again, I think you're worried. What you're actually worried when you ask that question is about content density, and whether there's enough for you to do in the world.
Yeah, the Quailer's asking, can you see Division having any longevity problems? So I guess that's probably the
longevity question. Right now. The only proposed longevity I can see is in the Dark Zone. Whether the Dark Zone ends up being like DayZ, or whether the Dark Zone ends up just being generic, like PvP.
Right. Yeah.
We don't know yet. That's where the best loot is. That's where all the high-level players are going. If you hit level 30, they actually have like a dedicated Dark Zone for the highest level players.
VIP club.
Yeah. I am concerned, though. I don't know how matchmaking is going to work in the Dark Zone. And if you start this game a week late, like, I don't know if a bunch of level 20s are just going to stomp you the second you get in there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can wander it solo, because if I got 3 guys and you're by yourself with some sick loot, I'm just going to take you out.
Yeah, for sure.
I have no motivation to not do that.
Yeah. Pick them off easy. Peter, you got any questions for Aaron?
Where'd you get that sweet hat?
No, I mean, the Division.
I feel like for any of us to, like you were kind of pointing out, to really like speak about this game in definite terms, we have to play it for a long amount of time, and that's just what I want to do. when can I play it?
Yeah, I guess. As somebody who has at least had like a smidgen of what that experience is, that we're all looking forward to it. How did you feel coming away from having some time with The Division? Did you feel disappointed? Did you feel like you had to reset your expectation? Did you feel like it was fun in a different way? What did you think?
I think actually Eric Tay in our office put it best, where
he always does.
Yeah, the expectation kind of tanked after last year's E3.
Right.
So my expectations were properly lowered going into this. I think I see a fun game. I didn't see in the 3 hours we played it, it wasn't fantastic. It was totally competent. I could see having a lot of fun grouping up with friends and playing through. And I did see some, like in the echo sequences, I actually did see some genuinely really good writing, like with the Rikers prisoners. There was a great moment where one of them was like torturing a guard, and the guard says to him, like, dude, I'm not just a number. I'm not just a uniform. I'm a guy. And the Rikers guy says to him, great, well, now you know how I feel. So like there were some good moments like that, but there were also moments where some of the main characters were kind of like cheeseballing it.
Why is Dan Reichert taking prisoners?
Thinking the same thing.
So yeah, good. 3 hours with it. It was good, but not great. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to digging much deeper into this game and seeing what the deeper content is.
Yeah, it's out pretty soon. First week of March, is that right? Yeah, and the alpha.
March 8th.
March 8th
is the unofficial right now.
Okay,
maybe
cool.
the official. Yeah.
When is the mobile companion app?
That might have been cut.
I think.
Oh God!
Oh, well, how am I want to get that drone to come in.
Yeah.
Just like you, just a super loud asshole with a gun on it. Have you seen videos of them trying to put guns on drones? Have you seen that? It's so good. It's just like.
I mean,
nightmare.
America.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, The Division probably has the tech. Aaron Sampson, thank you so much for coming in, telling us all about your time with The Division.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time. You folks who are watching this live, thank you so much, by the way, for supplying us with questions. For you guys watching this on GameSpot or YouTube after the fact, and you have any questions, by all means, feel free to put them in the comments below. We'll try and get to them. Let us know what you think about The Division. Are you excited for it? Are you stemming your expectation? Put your thoughts in the comments below.